With continuous improvement journeys that you've been involved in throughout your career prior to getting to the Shingo Institute and the Utah State University, how easy was it for them to succeed? Or how many of them did you actually see succeed and sustain versus have challenges and diminish?
Whoa, it's a lot easier to do it when you do it from scratch. Greenfield. That's why I emphasize the greenfield. In the second time after we had the successful greenfield startup where we created the one-piece flow and managed to do things, it still runs well. I went back and visited there last year, and it's still running pretty well. They still have a lot of the same controls in place, and that it was really fun and it worked well. The culture is still, it was easier to build the culture when there wasn't something you had to overcome. You could just start and build it that way to begin with. The worry I've seen as I got involved with as a corporate, then I got promoted from running that operation to being a corporate officer, okay? And we did some acquisitions and trying to change the culture in some of the acquisition organizations was really hard. And so I found being able to build something from scratch to be easier than trying to change something that's already got an established culture. And I appreciate what a lot of the people that we encounter in the Shingo Institute must be going through, because they realize we've got to change something, but what they really have to change first and foremost is that culture. And that's the hardest thing to change. And it takes time, and it takes good management. It takes a change in management, how the management interfaces with and then engages the people. This translates over into the history of the Shingo Institute a bit, but we found that the only way to sustain an improvement effort is by having the right kind of culture. If you can do a lot of improvement, but you're not going to be able to make it sustainable unless you've got the right kind of culture. And we'll talk about that in a minute, I think. But
again, on that, like starting down that path, because you said that the Shingo Institute has been through a similar journey like that. That's something with the Shingo Institute is actually what led it from a path of seeing things fail and be tough, and then head into a path where they found a way to actually help make things stick and sustain.
Well, let me do it within the context of the prize. So we started the Shingo Prize in 1988. And at first it was mainly North American manufacturing. That was probably true for the first roughly 10 to 15 years. And we had a lot of success in identifying, our model, our assessment model was based upon systems, tools, and results. If you had good lean systems and you had good lean tools and you got good results from it, you could get a Shingo Prize. And the problem is most of the organizations that received a Shingo Prize were not able to sustain their improvement efforts. You'd like to think in continuous improvement that people are going to be good and then keep getting better even if they receive a Shingo Prize. But what we found is that too many of them, or more than half, would kind of peak out and then deteriorate as time went on after they received the Shingo Prize. And it got so bad that people would come to us at the Shingo Institute and say, have you seen them? You gave them a Shingo Prize? They're not very good at all. And it was very concerning to us. And so the people who were at the Shingo Institute at the time did a research study and went and visited several of the recipient organizations, both those that had deteriorated and those who had kept getting better and better and better, even after receiving the Shingo Prize. And the big difference, and I'll do a simple explanation and then a little bit of lessons learned, if that's okay.
That'll be great. Thanks, Ken.
The big difference was in the case where they were not able to maintain or sustain that improvement effort. The biggest reason was because it had been done to the people. It was in management was doing all the improvements, or engineering was doing all the improvements, but the people were not engaged. And so they were doing lean to the people. They weren't doing lean with the people. And what we saw with those who were able to sustain their improvement efforts over time and kept getting better and better, they had figured out how to engage the people. It was everybody working together on improvement. It wasn't just management. It wasn't just engineering. It was everybody was involved, and they had changed the culture. And we often use this explanation because this is what we publish, and what we really found was we came away with three key insights that we found from this research of looking at the ones who didn't sustain, and especially looking at the ones who did sustain, who were able to sustain that improvement over time. And we often refer to them as benchmark companies, the ones we go and study. And as we study them, then we'll go back to the rest of the world and say, here's what we've learned from these companies that keep getting better and better. The first thing we learned is, in talking to them, they didn't talk about KPIs anymore. They didn't talk about those results anymore. They talked about behaviors. So let me give an example of a type of a conversation that we'd had with these, and we saw it across these multiple organizations. They say, we don't look at the results anymore. We don't look, and I'll use safety as an example. We don't look at the number of recordables, and that's the term we use in the US, but you have to record all the injuries and all the lost time that happens because of injuries, okay? So we loosely use the term recordables because you have to record them and report them to OSHA in the US. So we don't look at recordables. We look at, have we identified anything that might be unsafe? Have we logged all the near misses? Have we taken, and this is what we measure, the key thing we measure is, have we tried to error proof it so that safety issue can't ever happen? And we know if we're doing those things, we're not going to have any injuries on the job. We're not going to be losing anybody because they got injured on the job. So it's a different mindset. They're looking at those predictive behaviors that prevent any kind of issue. And they say the same thing about quality. They say the same thing about machine breakdowns and maintenance. We are doing all these behaviors to prevent breakdowns. We're doing these behaviors to prevent quality problems. And so what we put that into what we call our first insight, which is ideal results require ideal behaviors.
And again,
if you happen to have a good safety record, but you don't have ideal behaviors, that's just luck.
Yeah, it's not going to sustain. I mean? Again, what is it that you believe stops more organizations focusing on behaviors, instead focusing so heavily on results?
Because they don't think about the cause of the results, they think about the results. And really, if you want to understand the cause of results, you have to think about the behaviors. But I think our time frame is just too short. We're narrowing the time frame and just looking at results. And often, somebody will see results, and you'll have something red, and sometimes people fear red because we're supposed to be green all the time. But what happened, they don't look at the cause. They just look at the results and then say, oh, that's a problem, we got to fix it. No, what you need to do is, you've got a problem that was caused long before that because of this behavior, and you got to change that behavior, and you've got to change that process, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it sounds to me you're describing, you need to focus on those leading behaviors, the root
Yes.
causes that actually lead to that result that you want to get or don't get.
Absolutely. You've got to look at almost all leading indicators, and I've seen a few exceptions that are effective leading indicators, like a pre-result results in this final result. You can have some leading indicators like that, but most leading indicators are behaviors. They're actions. It's the things people do. So that was kind of the first insight. There's two more insights. Let me kind of share those with you, and maybe that will also generate some additional discussion. The second insight that we had was purpose and systems drive behaviors. And let me explain what we mean by that. When we say purpose, that means there's some greater cause that people get motivated by. And that motivates them to do the right thing. It helps them to understand what that right thing is. So when we say ideal result, that ideal result goes back to that purpose. So if I'm working for a hospital, I'm there to save lives or help make people better. To me, that's a greater purpose, and I can understand how my behaviors can affect that great cause. And people are motivated by that. They get excited to go to work because of that. But here's the catch, and this is why we don't just say purpose drives ideal behaviors, because we as leaders often make it really hard for people to do that right thing. And the way we make it easy for people to do the right thing is by putting systems in place that make it easy for them to do that right thing and make it hard for them to do the wrong thing. Right? So purpose and systems drive behaviors. And if you want those ideal behaviors that will drive those ideal results, we need to have a clear purpose, and we need to make it easy for people to do the right thing. So purpose and systems drive behaviors.
Can excuse my ignorance with this, but are you saying that you've got that purpose, and if you've got that purpose, that motivates and drives and creates energy, that greater cause, or that just cause is being used a lot nowadays too?
Yes.
But then the systems provide a framework, boundaries, a level of quality and ability for people to really do a great job driving towards that just cause or purpose. Have I got that right?
Yes, you've got it right. And our research has indicated, and this has been substantiated by other research as well, but when you make it hard for people to do the right thing, they'll do the right thing anyway if they buy into the just cause, and they'll do that for a period of time. But unless leadership makes it easy, changes the system and makes it easy for people, people get cynical and they say, well, they talk about that great cause, but they're not serious about making it easy for us to do it. And so they'll just go back and do the easy thing. They'll fall back on the easy thing because management doesn't care. And that ruins the improvement effort, because management didn't care enough to make it easy for them to improve. Does that make sense?
It does, Ken. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, and the third thing that we found, so this is our third insight, is every time we go and ask one of these benchmark companies, why do you do that? Or why did you do this? Or what led you to get to that improvement and whatever? They can always explain it to us. They could always say, well, we did that because of this. We did it because of this. We started collecting all of those because of explanations, okay? And we put it in the form of principles. And to us, principles are things that are timeless, meaning they were true thousands of years ago. Those continue to be true thousands of years from now. They're universal. They're true in Australia, they're true in China, they're true in the US, they're true in Japan, and they're true everywhere. So they're timeless, they're universal, and there are consequences of either following the principle or not following the principle. Meaning you get a good result if you do it, and you get a bad result if you don't. So we started collecting all of these whys, okay, these explanations, and formulating them into principles. And that's we say principles, guiding principles inform ideal behavior. And so we developed 10 Shingo guiding principles that we've put into our Shingo model. And that's we think a really important missing piece in our previous way we were doing assessments, because to us, the culture is the accumulation of all of the behaviors of the people in an organization. Don't point to some value statement on the wall and say, well, that's what we believe in. No, let us observe what you do. Don't tell us you're honest if you're deceiving your suppliers and telling them one thing and doing another, or you're promising high quality to your customers but not delivering high quality to your customers. We will believe your actions. We will not believe what you say what you put on the wall. Culture is all about the behaviors, and those principles guide those ideal behaviors. They explain why.
Well, Ken, do you mind, again, I've got a question on that. So principles don't really are about what do you see the behaviors of people in the organization? What principles are they living by? Not necessarily what's written on the wall in a value statement or anything like that.
Yes, that is correct. Absolutely correct. So that's one reason why we do a shingle price assessment. We go and observe the activities of the people, the actions, the behaviors of the people. We want to see what they do. We don't want to see that they have a slogan that says safety first. Let me just give an example. I was in not a car, but a vehicle manufacturing plant not too long ago, and they had a safety first sign on, but I noticed several unsafe behaviors. And to me, it's like, no, the behaviors you have to have the behaviors match to make it really part of the culture. They have to really act like safety is first. So
And Ken, do you mind me asking, where do you where do you believe, or where do principles come from within an organization? What creates the principles that an organization's living by,
I,
and
I,
ultimately
th-
then I guess the behaviors you see when you're assessing?
I think the principles are already there. It's a question of whether the organization is paying attention to him, or letting those principles guide what they do. So, and I'll give them an example of, let's just say a company's value is we make money to make money. It's all about making money. Well, to me, that is not a purpose. That's just, a ownership and leadership just wants to benefit from the efforts of everybody else. It's not trying to solve some just cause or great cause. It's not trying to make a difference in the world, or whatever. We don't see that as something that motivates people. That a purpose has to be something that people can rally around. It has to be something that people, get excited about wanting to be part of. They makes them excited to go to work, because not because they're just getting a paycheck, but because they're making a difference. And we so you can't just have a purpose. You have to have a meaningful purpose. You have to have a purpose that people unite around and unify around. You've got to have a purpose that people can understand and relate to. You can't just have it be something that's meaningless and petty, and not lasting. And so when we teach this, we not just teach you've got to have a purpose, but you've got to have a purpose with meaning. You've got to, and so on. That's true of all of the principles. And we find a lot of organizations maybe doing really well in some aspect, but not so well in other aspects. And that's often what happens when we go do a site visit. We'll say, wow, they are really good at this. They're world class, truly world class at this, in some cases even best in the world that we've ever seen at this. But boy, they've got a long ways to go on this. And that's not unusual. It's not unusual to see that they've identified something where they can really rally around and do a good job at, but they're missing something. And the problem is when that happens, there's a consequence. The consequence of doing something well is that you get the reward from it. But if you're not doing so well here, you don't get the reward from that. You still have a problem and an opportunity to improve in that area. And that's one of the things why assessments are so valuable, because sometimes we don't even see we're not doing well in something. I'll tell you a story. I love the chances I get to be a Shingo site examiner. Okay, so I'm on a site visit, visiting a company. They make a product that well, it's a pharmaceutical company that makes a product for juvenile onset diabetes. Okay, and so they're really making something that helps children live, thrive, grow, develop. Without their medicine, it's, and the way they package it, children would be struggling, dying, and so on. Most of the people, we asked them for their own self-evaluation before we go, and they said, we don't, we're our understanding and our purpose, we think, is okay. We're not doing great, but we're not doing bad. On the flip side, they had a clinic inside their facility with two doctors. They had one of the doctors is dedicated to identifying repetitive stress injuries using a special software program we'd never seen before anywhere in the world. They have a family a family, they can bring their families in for checkups. It's all part of the health. They're providing great safety program and so on. We've never seen anywhere that took as good a care of their people anywhere in the world.
Wow. Wow.
And yet most of the people who worked there did not know that the product that they made was used for juvenile onset diabetes. And really, when you ask them, what's the purpose here? And they go, oh, wait, they couldn't even explain to us that we make a huge difference in the lives of these kids.